Welcome everyone, near and far, small and large, listen to my confusingly sultry voice. Welcome to Camille's Harem during this wonderful Singles Awareness Month. We're a writing channel by novice writers for anyone to enjoy, because writing is an adventure and it's more fun with friends. You ever think back to some of the shows and stories you really liked as a kid? Found yourself cringing inside because of just how messed up those pieces of entertainment was? I definitely have. Especially because I've been a huge fan of anime since I was 13 and would inhale as much of it as I could. I'd watch the action, the humor, and most importantly for this video, the romance. I just gotta say, my perception of good romance anime was horribly off when I was a kid. One of my first anime was a show called Please Teacher, a show where a high school kid is forced into an arranged marriage to protect the secret of his homeroom teacher being an alien. Yep, it's just as bad as it sounds. I got Lars to watch this one last year and he was suffering so much. I mean, I enjoyed putting him through the pain, but I rewatched it too and felt that same pain. Mutually assured destruction is what the whole situation became. But after watching that, I decided to look back at some other romantic comedy-esque shows I watched when I was younger, and I found myself a little concerned for the younger me. It's no wonder I'm hopelessly single. We've got Still Angel Kurumi, a story about a guy finding an android in his basement who instantly falls in love with him, and the dark organization that is trying to kill the android because she's a world-ending threat. Then there's Deers, a story about a pervert finding a genetically engineered naughty girl with no memories in a mysterious capsule in the river, and the shenanigans that ensue after she instantly latches onto the guy. And even though I like Vandread, because a lot of the action and commentary on gender and sci-fi is very well done, it too has a scene where the MC saves a mysterious capsule and the girl inside instantly falls in love with him. I've decided for all intents and purposes I'm going to call this trope out of the box love, because you find someone in a box and they automatically fall in love with you. I've seen this in other pieces of media too, and now that I've hopefully matured a bit, I find that I don't like the trope at all. It tramples the romance genre in a very unsettling way. Think about it like this. Baby birds will often imprint on the first animal they see, which is supposed to be their mother, but can accidentally be some other creature. They pop out of their egg and trust the first thing there. Now say a fox comes around and the chick sees the fox first. Can you see where this tragedy of a story is going? It's an instant romance in a bottle is what it is. And I think it takes way too much agency out of the hands of all of the characters involved and leads to a lackluster romance overall. The girl, who is almost always the one in the box, doesn't have a choice as she's forced to fall in love with someone in a horribly contrived manner. The guy, who we're supposed to think is some lucky bastard, is forced into a situation where he has to take care of an insane girl, and everyone else around them is forced to deal with the situation that the two cause. It's lazy romance writing is what it is. Instant love isn't a thing, or at least shouldn't be a thing, especially in writing a romance story. A good story requires time and interaction between characters and influence from the setting around them. Out-of-the-box love stories are about the strange circumstances, not the romance. Good romance takes time to build up and introduce the characters. It lets us as the audience get familiar with who the characters actually are, and it lets the characters find out the very same thing. It not only has chemistry between the characters, but lets them build chemistry as a couple. I fully believe that is something that people don't think about when writing chemistry between couples. It's a two-part process. You have an initial chemistry, and then you have a developing chemistry. Initial chemistry is everything the characters bring into the relationship before it starts. This includes, but is not limited to, physical attractiveness and appearance, kinks, personalities, past and current relationships, social status, and hobbies and interests. It's all of the parts of them that could be red or green flags depending on the taste of the other person in the relationship. And there should be some, even if they're minor, red flags. No one is perfect, and no one wants to date a Mary Sue. I've seen way too many stories where, especially the female lead, but it's been done the other way too, I'm sure, is perfect and the other lead just kind of falls apart. They're weak and kind of ineffectual in the sense of the story. You always end up wondering, why those two ended up together. I mean, it's fine to have a dom-sub relationship. You're never going to see them as equals in any way. You have to make up for that in some other way to make the relationship actually stand out and be like an interesting, readable relationship. I think the thing is, having flawed characters gives them more work to do to actually make the relationship work. As they work through those issues, it leads into the next part of the chemistry equation. But before we get into that, let's kind of talk about some more these tropes that like fall into this first part. So everything at the beginning of the relationship, from being introduced to each other through possibly a couple dates, it depends on the relationship, is part of this initial chemistry. The characters are still feeling themselves out, and you can't expect them to develop anything past a crush, a desire to further get involved with the other person at this stage. Love at first sight is a great trope that falls right into this setup. In this case, the character hasn't fallen in love with the character, but in what they see of the character when they first looked at them. Enemies to lovers is another good one, because they start out as enemies, they hate each other, but then as they start to get to know the other person and understand who they are, then we start getting into the next stage of the chemistry. So part two is the developing chemistry. Now that the characters are starting to really get to know each other, then they actually start to grow feelings for each other. They start to develop their relationship and start hopefully working together to make it work out. This is like an actual chemistry experiment. You may have an initial burst of action, but as the chemicals settle into a new formula, they show what the mix actually looks like. It is a little more complicated than that, though, when it comes to the romance genre. In this formula, there's always going to be new elements added or some taken out. Pressures from the outside will test the new bond that has been created, and the bond can either break or get stronger depending on how the characters handle the challenge. The developing chemistry doesn't end till either both characters die or the relationship falls apart and they break it off. If you're making any kind of romance, I think you deserve to take the time to analyze what you want to do with the romance and take a look at where you wish to take it. For example, a whirlwind rush of a story can easily go through both steps that I mentioned before, and often enough, the most fun stories do exactly that, forcing your characters into situations that force them to get closer and open up to each other is a great way to get their bonds to grow stronger, or to test and see if they will break. If you wish to do a slow burn, then take more time initially introducing your characters to the audience first. Then when you get to the actual romance, you have less to explain as the chemistry starts to take place. Then, when you feel like you have a good grasp of everything that has to do with writing chemistry, row out the rulebook and truly make the story your own. You're the writer, what you say goes. A more recent manga I got into, I originally thought was entirely a fetish manga, and I had no interest in reading it at all. I joked about it to Lars, and he dared me to read it. I did, and found a truly engaging romance manga. Sweat and Soap is a manga about a woman that sweats a lot and a guy that has a super sense of smell, and they both work at a soap company. He's attracted to her scent, but she just wants to hide that scent, so it's a really awkward situation at first. They start to get to know each other. They get past that initial phase, and then the two of them begin to fall in love with each other as they begin to understand who the other person is. It's not about the scent anymore, it's about their relationship growing past that point. It has both phases, and it's a truly wonderful rom-com. I highly recommend it. In fact, I recommend anything by the author of that one. I'd really recommend you take a look into that. And just kind of end this, we here at Camille's Harem just want you to enjoy the writing process. Take our advice, or don't, but go out there, write, and enjoy the process of writing. You can find us here on YouTube mostly, and a couple of other places too. Please check out Lars' works, especially. He puts a lot of work, and he's really the MVP of the channel. So go check out some of the stuff he's written, because they're really fun. And with all that said, Ogini.